Most people think every valuable diamond on Earth is locked away in a high-security vault, guarded by lasers and armed men, accessible only to the ultra-rich. That's the story we've all been told. But it's not the whole truth. The reality is, many of these fortunes are still out there, lost in nature, just waiting for the right person to stumble across them. And that person could be you. Think about it. Why are diamonds so valuable in the first place? And if they really are worth that much, where exactly are you supposed to look? These might seem like impossible questions, but if you know the right answers, your life could change forever. Stay with me for a few seconds, because today, you're going to learn how to find diamonds in nature and actually make money from them. Here's something most people never realize. Statistically, you are more likely to find a precious gemstone in a river than you are to win the lottery. According to the World Geological Association, there are thousands of rivers around the globe filled with rare gemstones, hidden among the gravel that piles up in the riverbed. These are called alluvial deposits. Many of these deposits stretch for miles downstream, and because there simply aren't enough people searching them, most remain completely untouched. That means if you know where to look and what to look for, you could be one step away from finding a fortune. But most people will ignore this opportunity completely. They think it's impossible. Hard to believe? Later in this video, I'm going to tell you about a man who sold a fortune for pocket change. He had a diamond in his hands worth $15 million, and he sold it for just $500. He never knew what he had. So, if you live near a river, a stream, or even a waterfall, you might be walking right over undiscovered treasure without even realizing it. Today, you'll see all the different shapes a rough diamond can take, so you don't overlook a fortune hiding in plain sight. You'll learn how to tell a real diamond from a worthless piece of quartz. And you'll get a step-by-step guide to finding valuable gemstones in any river, even ones that have dried up completely. Who knows, after watching this video, you might be one of them. Every diamond on Earth starts the same way. Pure carbon, squeezed and heated more than 160 kilometers below the surface. The pressure there is crushing. The heat is unimaginable. Under those conditions, carbon atoms lock into a crystal structure that nothing in nature can match. That structure is what makes a diamond the hardest natural substance known to science. It takes millions of years, sometimes billions. And if other elements happen to be present during that slow formation, they change everything. A trace of one element turns a diamond pink, another makes it blue. Orange, purple, green, yellow, brown, black, gray. The color spectrum of diamonds runs wider than most people ever see. Red is the rarest of them all, the most sought after. But black diamonds are the ones that stop me. Every single black diamond came from space. They formed during cosmic explosions, supernova events, and then hitched a ride to Earth on a meteorite. You are holding a piece of a dying star. So how do these stones buried deep underground ever reach your hands? The answer runs through volcanic pipes called kimberlite pipes. Deep in the Earth's crust, this rock stays molten, holding diamonds suspended inside it. And the diamonds get trapped inside the rock. Then nature takes over. Over time, those kimberlite deposits erode. Water seeps in, wind wears them down, temperature changes, crack them open. The rock gradually breaks apart, and the diamonds are released. Rain carries them, streams pull them, currents push them downstream. Eventually, they settle in riverbeds mixed with gravel and sand. That is exactly where they accumulate in what geologists call alluvial deposits. Here is the part that should change how you think about searching. You do not need heavy equipment to get started. A few sieves and access to a river are often all you need. The hardest part is not identifying a diamond once you have it. The hardest part is finding one in the first place. The late 1980s. The Democratic Republic of the Congo. A mining site, long since picked over, left with piles of rubble that nobody cared about anymore. And in one of those piles, a young girl was playing. She wasn't a miner, she wasn't a geologist. She was just a kid, kicking through the waste rock and gravel, the stuff the real miners had thrown away. And that's where she found it. A stone. Unusual looking, not like the gray, dusty rocks all around her. This one caught her eye. She picked it up, turned it over in her small hands, and decided it was pretty. She didn't know what it was. She just knew she liked it. So she took it home and gave it to her uncle. A gift, a pretty rock for her uncle. He kept it. Why wouldn't he? It was a nice gesture from his niece. He probably put it on a shelf or in a drawer and forgot all about it. To him, it was just a decorative rock. A keepsake. Nothing more. Days passed. Weeks. Maybe months. The stone sat there, doing nothing, being nothing, and then the uncle found himself in a tight spot. He needed money. He needed to pay his rent, and he didn't have enough. So he looked around for anything he could sell, and his eyes landed on that rock. He didn't think twice. He took it to a local dealer and sold it. For a symbolic price. Pocket change, really. Just enough to cover what he owed. He walked away, probably feeling relieved that he'd gotten anything for it at all. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the rock he'd just parted with for rent money was one of the largest yellow diamonds ever discovered. The stone changed hands, from that local dealer to someone else, and then to someone else again. It passed through a chain of people who, one by one, didn't quite know what they were holding. Until finally, it reached experts. People who knew exactly what they were looking at. They examined it carefully. They ran their tests. They measured it. And then they realized what they had. An 890-carat rough diamond. 890 carats. Let that number sit for a second. That's not a gem you find in a riverbed. That's not a lucky strike. That's a once-in-a-generation, maybe once-in-a-century discovery. And it had been sitting on a shelf in some man's house, treated like a paperweight. Once they cut it, the stone still weighed in at 303.1 carats, one of the largest yellow diamonds in the world. It went on to be displayed in museums. It was acquired by private collectors. It traveled the world, admired by people who could only dream of touching something like it. For years, it passed through the hands of the wealthy and the powerful. And then, in 22, the Golden Canary was put up for auction. It sold for over $12 million. $12 million. Think about the chain of events that made that possible. A girl playing in the dirt. A rock that caught her eye. A gift to her uncle. A man who needed rent money. And a stone that almost got thrown away. Almost got lost. Almost got forgotten forever. If that girl hadn't picked it up, it would still be buried in that rubble. If her uncle had known what he had, he wouldn't have sold it for pocket change. He'd have changed his family's financial future forever. But he didn't know, and that's the whole story, isn't it? The difference between a fortune and a forgotten rock isn't luck, it's knowledge. It's knowing what you're looking at. So before we go any further, subscribe, because the next part is where this gets personal. It's where you learn to see what that uncle couldn't. The most common shape you'll meet is the octahedron. 8 triangular faces, perfectly symmetrical, like 2 pyramids stuck together at the base. That natural geometry is a gift to cutters. It makes faceting efficient, which is exactly what unlocks a diamond's fire. There are other shapes too. The dodecahedral form has 12 pentagonal faces, less common, and its surfaces can be slightly rounded, which makes cutting trickier in certain setups. Then you have twin diamonds, 2 crystals that grew into each other, creating irregular angles and flat spots. Those are genuinely hard to cut into a well-proportioned stone. And alluvial diamonds? They've been through the ringer. Erosion and river transport have worn their edges down, rounding them off, leaving them less angular than the crystals still sitting in their original deposits. Now, the first thing to understand is this. Diamond is the hardest natural material in the world. It ranks 10 on the Mohs scale. It can scratch any other mineral and come away untouched. That gives you the classic glass test. Rub the stone against a regular glass surface. If it scratches the glass without being damaged itself, there's a strong chance it's a diamond. And you can add 2 more clues, the intense sparkle and the weight. A diamond feels noticeably heavier than other stones of the same size. That sparkle comes from something called adamantine luster. It reflects light so intensely it creates a dazzling brilliance no other stone can perfectly imitate. And the texture changes depending on the stone's state. A rough diamond can look opaque and dull. A cut diamond is incredibly smooth and brilliant. Then there are the simpler tests. The fog test breathe on the stone like you're fogging up a glass. A real diamond clears almost instantly because it doesn't hold heat. If the mist lingers for a few seconds, you're probably looking at glass or zirconia. You can also use a UV flashlight. Some diamonds glow a deep blue under ultraviolet light. One more, the newspaper test. Place the stone over paper with small letters. If you can read the letters through it, it's likely not a diamond. The crystal structure refracts light so intensely it blocks a clear view of what's behind it. But here's the catch, and it's an important one. Diamond is the hardest natural material. It is not indestructible. Its weakness is cleavage. If you strike it at just the right angle, it can break, so test carefully. Now imagine that during a walk in nature, you're lucky enough to find a rough diamond. What would you do? If your answer was to keep it, congratulations. Most people would simply ignore the opportunity because they think it's impossible. Hard to believe? Later in this video, I'll tell you a real-life story of a man who sold a diamond worth $15 million for just $500 simply because he didn't know what he had in his hands. Topaz shows up in rivers more often than you'd think. It looks like a clear stone with a faint blue or yellow tint. But here's the thing, it's noticeably heavier than quartz. That weight is your first clue. Topaz is denser and much harder, so it won't scratch easily. If you find a stone that feels heavy for its size, compare it to a piece of quartz. The difference is obvious. You can even test it with a precision scale in water to measure its density. Raw topaz sells for $20 to $200 per kilogram, depending on quality and color. Blue topaz is the prize it cuts into stunning jewelry and jumps in value. Then there's amethyst. This one's a quartz, but a special kind. It forms inside volcanic cavities called geodes. When those break apart, fragments wash into rivers. The water wears them down, so they end up rounded and easy to mistake for ordinary pebbles. But that purple color gives it away soft lavender to deep violet. Even raw, it sparkles. A kilogram of raw amethyst runs $20 to $50. Cut and polished, the good stuff sells for much more. Garnets are next. The most common color is a deep red, sometimes called Cape Ruby. But it's not a ruby, not even close. Garnets have a dodecahedral crystal structure, which means they grow in a shape that naturally rounds off as water tumbles them. So a garnet often looks almost spherical, with a natural shine. And like topaz, it's heavy denser than you'd expect for its size. If you spot a reddish-brown stone that feels heavier than a normal rock, you might be holding a garnet. High-quality ones, with vivid red and few inclusions, can top $50 per gram when cut. Now, the big ones, rubies and sapphires, they're the same mineral family, corundum. The only difference is color. Red means ruby. Anything else, blue, yellow, green, even colorless, is a sapphire. These stones rank just below diamonds on the Mohs scale. They're so hard, they barely scratch, which is why they survive centuries rolling around in riverbeds. Even lower quality pieces go for thousands per kilogram. Top quality rubies and sapphires, those can hit $100,000 per gram. That's the find that changes everything. Here's something that ties all of these together. Stones that travel through rivers get tumbled, knocked against other rocks until their edges wear smooth. That's called pebble rolling. It gives them that polished, rounded look, which actually makes them easier to spot once you know what you're looking for. So, if you find any diamond, even a low-quality industrial one, consider yourself lucky. Because if there's one in your area, there are likely more. And the next one could be worth far more. Just don't toss any gemstone without knowing exactly what it is. The difference between a $500 sale and a $15 million fortune, it's knowing what's in your hand. The rivers you want are the ones that have been doing the work for millions of years. Look for water running through mineral-rich ground or areas with a history of volcanic activity. That volcanic past is the key. It's what pushed diamonds up from deep underground in the first place. Ancient mountain ranges that have been eroding for thousands of years are prime sources too. And if there's an old mine upstream or a stretch of river that prospectors worked a century ago, those stones have been washing downstream ever since. The river has been sorting them for you. You don't need expensive gear to start. A simple spray bottle will wash the dust and mud off a stone so you can actually see its true color. A UV flashlight can make certain minerals light up, which helps you spot the rare ones. Screens of different sizes let you separate the lighter gravel from the heavier material where gemstones hide. And a gold pan, it's not just for gold. It concentrates heavy minerals and exposes the stones that would otherwise sit unnoticed at the bottom. Rubber boots are non-negotiable, riverbeds are unstable, and algae makes the rocks dangerously slippery. Now the technique. Look directly at the riverbed, especially in the gravel beds where heavy stones settle. And remember, the old prospectors did this without any of our modern tools. They still found some of the largest diamonds ever discovered, worth millions of dollars. Their methods were simple, and they worked. Finding a diamond in a river is rare, but it's not impossible. Experienced prospectors will spend days sifting through gravel and panning along the banks before they uncover even a single stone. But there have been cases where people found small diamonds completely by accident just exploring a riverbed or out on a hike in an area that was historically mined. They weren't even looking. And here's a tip most people overlook. A river that's already dried up can still hold gemstones in its bed. The same techniques apply, but without the water, the search gets a whole lot easier. It's an opportunity that almost nobody explores. So you've got your stone. Now what? Before you get excited, there's a simple way to check if it's worth anything. You don't need expensive equipment. You need to start with what you can do at home. The first thing to test is weight. Some gemstones, topaz, and garnets, for example, are significantly heavier than common rocks of the same size. Pick it up, feel it. Does it feel denser than it should? You can even do a proper density test, which means calculating the weight-to-volume ratio. It sounds technical, but it's just weighing the stone and measuring how much space it takes up. Then there's the Mohs hardness test. Precious gemstones are generally much harder and more resistant than common minerals. A classic example, quartz can be scratched by a steel blade. But stones like sapphires, rubies, and diamonds remain completely unaffected, so try scratching the surface. If a blade won't mark it, and glass won't mark it either, you might have a high-hardness gemstone on your hands. Another quick check is the transparency test. Hold the stone up to the light and look at its internal brilliance. Sapphires, topaz, and high-quality quartz have a certain glow inside. And pay attention to how light reflects off the surface. The optical properties of real gemstones are distinctive. If you're still unsure, after all that, take it to a gemologist or a specialized jeweler. They'll have professional equipment, high-powered magnifying loupes, and spectroscopes that can accurately determine the composition and value of your find. That's the only way to get a definitive answer. But here's the warning. Be careful. Some dishonest professionals might try to trick you into selling your gemstone for far less than it's actually worth. Believe it or not, this happens all the time. People have unknowingly sold rare and valuable gemstones for just a few cents, never realizing they were holding a true treasure. So you need to know exactly what you have before you even think about selling. Here's something most people don't realize. Diamonds are sold in diamond exchanges. To get there, they need to be certified by authorized gemological laboratories. There's an entire market dedicated to investing in and trading diamonds as financial assets. The major exchanges include the Israel Diamond Exchange, the Diamond Dealers Club in New York, and the DMCC in Dubai. But before you rush off to sell, take precautions. Many investors act as intermediaries between sellers and buyers. They'll do everything they can to secure a lower price, only to resell the same diamond for a much higher value. So you need to be prepared. Learn to perform those simple tests, the density test, the Mohs hardness test. That way, no one can convince you to sell a diamond for the price of a sapphire, which is often significantly cheaper. And just to give you a sense of what's at stake, a small, raw diamond can sell for up to $1,000. Larger, high-quality stones can be worth millions. The value varies significantly depending on size, color, and clarity. The final cutting process is what truly makes a gem valuable, along with its color and size. So you've tested it. You've verified it. Now you know the process. But there's something even more fascinating about where these stones come from, and it might change how you see every single one you find. Some diamonds didn't form underground at all. They fell from the sky. We're talking about black diamonds. Every single one of them came from space. Scientists believe they formed during the explosion of supernova stars, then hitched a ride to Earth on meteorites. So when you hold a black diamond, you're holding a piece of a dead star. That's just one color though, and color is everything when it comes to value. There are more than 7 different colors of diamonds: pink, blue, orange, purple, green, yellow, brown, gray, and black. Each one plays a major role in determining the final price. Red diamonds are the rarest and most sought after of all. They're so scarce that most gemologists will never see one in their entire career. Pink and blue diamonds are also incredibly valuable. But black diamonds are the coolest because of where they came from. And yellow diamonds, well, you already know what a big yellow diamond can do. The Golden Canary proved that. Now, here's the thing you absolutely cannot forget. If you found a stone and it didn't pass any of the tests, don't throw it away. Seriously. Never discard a gemstone or crystal without knowing exactly what it is. Many gems resemble diamonds, and even if they're not as valuable, they can still have a decent market value. Some lesser-known stones are genuinely surprising. There are countless stories of people who thought they had a common rock, only to discover later that it was a rare and valuable gem. So, before you toss that pebble back into the river, take a second look. Because the difference between a rock and a fortune is often just a little bit of knowledge. Don't expect one stone to change your life overnight. But here's the thing, statistically, you're more likely to find a gemstone in nature than to win the lottery. And depending on where you live, you might not even need a license to go looking for diamonds. That's not a fantasy, that's just math. But if this isn't your moment yet, that's fine. There's a free way to keep learning. Subscribe to the channel. Every week, we put out videos packed with practical tips on spotting and identifying gemstones, so you're never walking blind. And the next one will take you even further. You'll learn hands-on techniques for finding valuable stones, diamonds, topaz, tourmalines, the kind of knowledge that turns an ordinary walk into a real search. Because here's what this all comes down to. The difference between a $500 sale and a $15 million fortune isn't luck, it's knowledge. And now, you have it. So go out there, look down at the ground, and see what's been waiting for you all along. Good luck, gem hunter. Who knows, after watching this video, you might just be one of them.